Hey guys, it's Batjack JW, and thanks for tuning in to another radio chat box. And I appreciate you guys being over here on this channel. Actually, I just got a comment on this channel, and this comment was in regards to one of the old behind the scenes Ghost Rider videos. Here, I got it playing, and this was actually the episode. This was some time back too. Where we were gonna the skit was, this was back when we were gonna take and cut Jerry's mustache off and attach it to me. So I think the skit was like, hey, we're gonna Batjack is the only one that doesn't have a mustache, and so we're gonna have to take yours. And Jerry, by the way, big shout out to Jerry Woods over there at Trail Dust Town, the Pinnacle Peak Pistoleros. It's a great show, amazing guy, and he just does some stunts on there that are just phenomenal, including his wife Heather, where she comes off the top of the building. I mean, just amazing stunt there, just holding onto a rope, not slowing down at all, just full on guns blazing going. So, anyway, this episode, if I recall now, when I'm looking back at this video, we published this at September 24th. 2017, so it's a little ways back, not too far. I guess, I don't know. But the episode is where we're going to remove Jerry's mustache, and so it was kind of neat filming this. And I had taken my camera, which R.I.P. to that camera. I really wish I still had it, because it was such a great camera. I knew exactly how to use it. It just wound up just, I don't know, it just fell apart and broke. I do want to get another one. But this comment came in from Rusty. He said, every time I watch one of the Ghost Rider films, I wonder what it's like to produce and direct a segment. This is probably my favorite episode. Really enjoyed it. So thank you, Rusty. This episode, I do recall, we were I was hearing, when I heard the idea, somewhat of a script. We got the script, and we were like, hey, what are we doing here? And I just always pictured, I mean, if you notice, there's actually a scene during when I was doing the behind the scenes kind of footage, just filming it with my camera. There's a sequence there which I really like, and it's when Jerry's kind of standing there. Now, Jerry is, he's a really tall guy, and you can, I don't know if you can, of course the camera magic really kind of plays it better, but he's much taller. And there's a sequence where Dan goes right next to him, where I was filming it. I don't know what made it into the actual final episode or not, which cuts they used, but there's a scene where Dan steps right up next to him, and it really puts it in perspective that Dirty Dan, that's the other thing, I don't think people realize this or not, that he's actually a pretty large individual. He's very tall as well, and he's just, his size to him, I mean, he's not only just tall, he's just big. So Jerry has this, he kind of does this, pan. I don't know if he, knew he was doing it or not, but he kind of looks and sizes him up, and he kind of has that little worried look on his face. And then Dan, he clicks out a switchblade. And I remember when we were choosing, I was looking at the props that I owned that have been used multiple times, different ones in different episodes, sporadically, different auto switchblades. And for me, those knives always kind of stood out in movies. Every time you see it, like in Chinatown with Jack Nicholson, and Roman Polanski comes up to him and he clicks out a switchblade and cuts his nose. It just that. I don't know, they're rinky-dinky little knives, but they're such screen stealers. Kind of like how the late actor Jeffrey Lewis was in a lot of Eastwood films, or any other movie he shows up in. He's such a screen stealer. He's such a good actor, and I think it's switchblades are just kind of I don't know, they just have that, they stand out. And they still do, not so much, I guess, anymore, far as, the past movies, which that's the only movies I really kind of care about. But, it's like when Dirty Harry, he's about to go and deliver the money bag, He says, nothing cute, nothing fancy, just delivered a suitcase. He goes, okay, and he clicks it out, and he says, you mind if I borrow some of your Scotch tape? So, but now back to the skit. Dan, this is kind of a testament to him. Now, the knife we used in that one is a 13-inch overall length switchblade. It's a very large knife. When you click it out, you're like, is this a sword or is this a knife? I mean, this is definitely not a standard pocket knife you would just open up to cut open a box or something. I mean, you whip this thing out. It's kind of like Paul Hogan saying, well, that's not a knife. But in a sequence, you watch it and you're like, wow, it just doesn't, it looks tiny because Dan himself is, I mean, he's just got massive hands. So that's why, another reason why we chose it for that. And I'm actually looking at this, and I'm going to watch the sequence a little bit here. You can actually see it. Yeah, I freeze framed it. With his large hands, you can actually see on the extra footage here I got, you can actually see the handle, even the handle on it, if his hand fills it really well. It was a good choice for him to use that, because if it was smaller, it wouldn't have had the effect, I think. But it was really fun filming this, and we had a lot of these moments where we filmed these. My personal favorite episode we ever did was the one where we were removing a boot off of Santee's foot. We were removing the boot, and I forget exactly what it was all about. But why I remember it so much is because there was a sequence where the boot had to hit Santee in the face. Of course, anytime you have something like that going on, where you have a boot or something, or somebody hurting Santee, and you have Dirty Dan involved, this is going to be a fun time on the set. It's just absolutely just crazy. So we must have taken 4 or 5 takes of the boot being thrown at poor Santee, and Dan relishing and loving every single second of this. It was absolutely funny. But it's cool. The part of it that I really enjoy about doing all these things is the camera angles and the movie magic part of it. If you were to see some of the ways it was filmed or shot or something, you know, it may not have the same effect, but it's really cool to be there to kind of feel like, almost like, you know, there's times where I'm reacting to something that's not there, but yet later on it's green screened in, or they use the special effects later to add it in. And it's kind of interesting because you're like, wow, this seems really silly doing this now. But then when you see the final product, you're like, oh, I get it now. That's actually really cool. It turned out really neat. I think that's part, to me, it's like all part of a big magic show. It's just when you see it all finally come together after rehearsals and all these segments, and it's really cool. There's even some times where we've done things on the fly where it was just kind of awesome. You're just like, wow, you just inserted that later on into something, or they use some a snip or clip or something like that, a little snippet or something from some past where it's like either Dan saying, like, a small clip of him saying, this is stupid, which is absolutely funny every time I see it, or just something that we've done at some point and it just turns out really good. There was some stuff that I still have yet. Santee, if you're listening to this, I still would like to know where these sequences are that we have shot. I have not seen them show up in a video. One was, we were out at the Harker's movie studio, and we were talking about lanterns or something, and there's Dan walks by and does some shenanigans with a Zippo lighter. It was absolutely funny. I really enjoyed that sequence. I thought it was really funny. So I'm waiting to see what you've done with it, or have you done something with it and I just missed it. Santee, you need a comment right here in the comment section and let me know where that sequence went and what came of it. I know you have a lot of footage that you have not used. Where is this footage? Everybody run over there to the Ghost Riders channel and tell Santee, where is all that footage that you've been holding out on us? Because there's a lot of stuff we have filmed, that was just really funny. That wound up on I guess the cutting room floor or something. But he does a good job. Santee does a really good job with all that stuff, and it's really a pleasure to be a part of it because it really is fun. It's always fun, and if you watch, it's actually in the end of the segments. Always make sure you watch the Ghostwriters videos to the extent of the final ending, even after the little credit thing, because sometimes Santee will sneak in a little blooper section, which some of it's really funny. And one was myself and Dan. We were robbing a train. We were supposed to rob the train, and we had brought snacks and stuff. He says, "Well, it's just Santee comes on and goes, well, the train doesn't come around for like hours or something." And we're like, "No, it's okay. We brought snacks. We had like Dorito chips and Coca-Colas and like a whole little and I think we put it in like a drink carrier or something that was all nicely put together, kind of like when you go to check in a hotel and they have that little basket on the dresser, and it's like, hey, by the way, here's some peanuts and coffee and all that. But yeah, what you don't know is when you open that, it's like $100. But it's kind of neat because we brought that on, like almost like the airplane. It's like, by the way, we have the snack box. But it was really cool. But at the end of that sequence, we were running through the lines, and the part was, I think Santee said something to Dan or the effect of saying we're idiots, and of course Dan, playing his character that he really well at playing, stands up to basically hit Santee right in the face and knock him down. Anytime, like I said, again, anytime you have something like that where Santee's getting hurt, punched, grabbed, strangled, bagged, roped, it's going to be a good day, and especially when you have Dan involved. Sorry, Santee. But we're running through the lines, and he does the thing, and Dan just stands right up, and it's a blooper, and he goes to wind up for the shot, and Santee's like, "You forgot the line." He says, "Oh, that's right," and he goes, "I forgot," and Dan sits back down, and he says, "You quit wanting to hit me so bad." That was a really great outtake. I'm really glad that made it into the skit at the very end as an outtake, a blooper, because it was really funny. And not to sound like Santee gets picked on all the time, but I mean, we've all going on set with us and filming or doing anything. You got to have a very good sense of humor, because the shenanigans that goes on, the goofy things behind the scenes while somebody's filming something. I mean, definitely expect some goofy things going on trying to make the other guy mess up. We were doing a sequence where we was talking about the type of props and prop guns that we use and where we buy them, and are they real, and yes, and the kind of deals we were getting on them, because it's expensive to start buying an arsenal worth of this stuff. Like for instance, the knife arsenal that we all use. I mean, Dan's got a lot of different Bowie knives and stuff. I got mostly the old school switchblades and stuff that we use, and a lot of them we take a grinder to and take the edges right off, and like especially the one where there was a wanted poster, which I come up from as Santee displays the wanted poster, I come up from the back of the poster and stick the knife through and then rip it through. That knife, for instance, is dulled. There's no edge on it. The tip has been rounded. It's just so that it protects the actors and other people around it. These things are very important so that he doesn't get hurt. But some of this stuff that we're doing, like I said, when we were talking about all our stuff, we're both sitting on the bench, and Dan was doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, just like either moving closer and closer, trying to wedge me between the other side, and while we're trying to do the scene. So it's a lot of fun. It really is. And so to answer, I guess, the comment, he says, wondering what it's like to direct the segment. It's a lot of fun. It really is, because at the end of the day, I mean, that's why we're doing it too, is it's fun. We're a group of friends that really love filmmaking and movie making, and that's really where, for me too, like the whole film and movie making is stemmed all the way back when I was just a little youngster with my grandparents and stuff, and begging them to, I wanted a video camera, a camcorder. And back then it was you recorded this stuff on videotape. And wanting to rent one. I mean, I would actually try to look into like what it would cost to rent one. I knew I wouldn't be able to afford one. I remember when, back in the '80s when my parents, we go through those magazines, and you could buy this big full size, deluxe home video camcorder thing that recorded on the VHS tape and all that. I mean, those things were like $1,000, and it was not cheap. I mean, nowadays everybody takes things for granted, or it's just like, oh, you just whip out your phone and just take a picture or videotape something. My generation, where I come from, and of course, I'm being the youngest guy there, but I'm just like, it was a big deal back in the day when I was growing up to be able to do something like that. When I was in school, I actually took photography class where we were actually shooting film on 35 millimeter or something, and actually developing our own film and doing the whole thing, using the solutions to develop it, and then running the film itself into the. I remember it's a big light. You put the film in front of it, and you have to go in the dark room and take the film out to get it ready for development. Or you shoved it into this bag and zipped the bag, and you shove your hands into the bag, and you did it that way. But you're pretty much doing it by feel. And so, but yeah, you could go in the dark room, and I got to develop my own film, and you hit the light. It hits over the film, and it goes onto that transfer paper, and you take the paper and you put it in the photo flow and stuff, and it was really cool to be able to do that. And I remember years later, like 10 years later, running into, this was back on the island, running into my teacher that was teaching that class. And I remember going up to him and thanking him so much for teaching the class, and then explaining to him how much the film is still with me. I mean, I love taking pictures. I love filming stuff. And he said, "Oh man," he was like, he just thanked me so much for that. And I asked him, I said, "Are you still doing that?" And he says, "Oh no." He goes, "That was long gone already." He's like, "No, nobody cares about that stuff anymore." He says, "Now everybody just takes a digital picture on their phone." And it's sad that that's kind of lost. But for me, all the way through, just growing up, for me, I remember, I would go out in the yard when I finally did get a video camera. Parents broke down and got me one for Christmas or something, and I filmed all kinds of stuff. I mean, anything. I used to go and take my. I had WWF action figures. I had Hulk Hogan, and I would just have him coming up out of the ground like a zombie and try to film it. And already back then, I was looking at even at that young of an age, thinking, what perspective can I use? Like, how can I set it down and actually set some of the dirt right in front of the lens so you can see it. It's almost like somewhat the picture was submerged somewhat underground too, and then raise the Hulk Hogan out of the dirt, silly stuff like that. I had at the time I had my dog. My dog was a German Husky, and she was beautiful dog, and she wound up being a star in a lot. I tried to make a Cujo type film, and doing close-ups, and I'd have to pull her her mouth kind of open a little bit and show her teeth, and then because she was such a sweet, loving dog, trying to make her intimidating like Cujo was a task and a half. But then I remember just like I think throwing some ketchup on the rocks or something, like as if somebody was chewed up from the dog or something. And so and then on my channel, this was all the way back again on the island with a good friend of mine, Scott, and we were coming up with stuff for Halloween. And I said, we should do like this, like Night of the Living Zombie Heads, and the idea was to shoot in black and white. Some of you guys that go way back with my channel remember this. In fact, now I think the footage I took it off the channel, I believe, and I think it's on Patreon. I believe that's where it's at now. But not a lot of people watched it. Maybe it got 100 views. I don't know. Not a lot of people were interested in it. Not a lot of people watched it. For me, it was one of my favorite things I ever did on YouTube. It really is. We were coming up with all this stuff, and of course we decided, we're going to shoot it in black and white. So the how were we going to make these zombie heads? I said, well, we'll just get balloons, blow them up, fill them up with some sort of blood substance, and then we'll shoot them. We'll see what that looks like. And so that wound up being, so we were just like, okay, being it wasn't going to be in black and white, the blood didn't need to be red. So what we did was we actually filmed the blood in with paint. It was some kind of paint that we used. It was cheap paint that we mixed with water and threw it in there, and it was just like either black or brown paint or something, or blue or something. It's also kind of funny that if you look back at Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho was actually not fake blood. They used chocolate syrup. Bosco's chocolate syrup for blood in Psycho. So when we did that, it was just fun to come up with the ideas. To like, hey, what do we do here? What do we do there? I remember telling my friend, I said, hey, let me do a quick cut sequence right here. Let me borrow your hand. And he's like, why do you want my hand? And what it wound up being was actually, I don't think he did do it. I think I had to do it. Where I think I hit my hand on the, or just kind of like laid it out really quick on like a rock or something, and then threw a cup of like paint and water mixture on it, like it's supposed to look like blood, and it's supposed to, like, it was a cut sequence of him, because my friend was one of the stars of the show. He was supposed to be eaten by one of the zombie head things, and so there's a shot of like him, and he acts scared, and then I think, and then it shows my hand sequence with the paint going on it, and it shows him on the ground, and his legs just kicking, and then it just kind of hose the area with a little bit of paint, and it just splice it all together. But like I said, I had most fun. That was the most fun ever on a video that I had making on YouTube. That was really fun. Just doing that, just sitting there, just really. We knew the sense of direction that we wanted to go, but it was just kind of just goofing off and just totally unorganized in a sense of just trying to put this thing together. Yeah, and then we had the ghost heads, where we put the sheets or cloth or something over the balloon, drew a little like cartoonish Scooby-Doo, ghost face on it, and then we actually had one on a zip line. And that zip line came downhill towards the camera, like a full-on like Jaws 3D type effect, and we were doing that kind of stuff. And of course, I loved the beginning sequence of one of them was where he's like, hey, we got a problem with the zombies. We need to gear up, and the classic opening the bag sequence and just kind of adapting the laying out of the arsenal, kind of from like Taxi Driver with De Niro and Scorsese, and to another movie that I think is underrated, Death Sentence, which came out like in 2008, 2009 with Kevin Bacon. And then, of course, Kevin Bacon buying an arsenal of assortment of weapons from John Goodman, which played an excellent character in that. But now moving out and then going and being involved with the Arizona Ghost Riders and Santee and being involved in all that stuff, I got to do stuff on such a larger scale, in a sense of like, doing a live show with blanks and audience and doing all that stuff, to these skits that we come up with the Ghost Riders, to be involved and get the script and try to act it out and play your character, and it's really a lot of fun because Santee really does have a great sense of direction of what he's going to do with the footage itself and how he can use his artistic, and a lot of times, like they say, when you don't have all the money in the world to do it, you get more creative with the way how you can do it. Some of the most successful, I think, like some of the most successful horror movies out there, take the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for instance, Tobe Hooper in the 70s. They had nothing. They had hardly any effects, but yet it's one of the most successful, frightening horror flicks to date. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And really, you look at it, what kind of a budget did they have? Hardly anything. So, but there it is. Love filmmaking, love making movies. That's truly my passion, always has been. And I hope to further into it and go further and further with it. And just, get to be involved in a lot more production stuff. So thanks for listening, you guys. have a good morning, and thanks for subscribing and being here on Batjack JW. And we'll see you next time. I was going to say see you on down the trail and get Santee all riled up.